what we had seen last year, November, some of these potential threat actors actually stayed dormant in the networks for almost 6 months before they could actually, exploit the networks, right? So that actually creates a good segue for me to start off what exactly, as part of the manufacturing profile that we talk about, there is an important gap analysis step that is required by most of the organization. That's required by every organization to perform
Absolutely.
before they start or during their security strategy discussions. And how exactly are we going to initiate some of these controls that are relevant to our organizations, right? So frameworks like these, and especially the framework profile that NIST mandates, it is while there are several other frameworks, this specific one actually is used as an outcome-based model, especially focused on the business needs to achieve what will be the desired state. And now it's again a moving window. So we see that threat landscape changes almost every single day. So it definitely is something that I would like to highlight, that it's a continuous process that we work with our customers. And generally what we have seen is that when it is done right, it's done in a more continuous manner, and not at what we see in sometimes where because of the time and because of the budgets and how the security is taken as an afterthought towards the digital transformation, we see that it is usually once or twice a year, and that is something, that mindset is changing. This is becoming a line item in almost every single critical needs as part of the project, as part of your our backend operations, our supply chain program, every aspect in the overall product life cycle, or any kind of new initiative that companies come in. This kind of profile setting is actually becoming a standard norm that it mandates. So what do we see here? So this is where we actually talk about what is our current profile, or what does the current state look like in our infrastructure, and what is the target or the desired state that we would want to achieve, and what are the list of items that we would need in order to achieve that state. So as we see, we've identified again a non-exhaustive list of about four different topics or major points which talks about this current state. So yes, our operational technology is complex. We have quite a bit of legacy infrastructure. So how well do we know what is connected to our IoT network? So we always have been talking about Purdue models. With the advent of IoT and digital industry 4.0 transformation, there is a break in that Purdue model. So there are solutions, there are technology today which is getting bolted on to our legacy infrastructure in order to do predictive maintenance, remote monitoring, analytics, and any data that we can get out of our industrial control systems, right? So that becomes critical to understand how well do we know what is connected, what does our inventory look like, which is connecting back to our IT networks, what are the assets which are monitored by our existing security operations team, and what controls do we have? So that's the limitations of OT and ICS security controls that we see today. So now the frameworks that we see, they're not prescriptive. So they're not prescribed to follow any specific template to stay compliant, right? But they help you being compliant against several others that we have talked in the past, mentioning about your NERCIP, talking about your IEC 62443, ENISA. So there is several different compliance metrics and standards that are coming there. And how well do we identify what is required for us to map it with those compliances that we are working based on the industry that we are part of? Right, and also the risks on the industrial machines itself. So can we afford a downtime on our critical infrastructure? So today, do we have enough controls that talk about how do we afford that downtime, or how do we mitigate or minimize that downtime? And what also the talking about the compatibility of our current existing technology, which we have in our IT, versus the legacy technology. And are we using the same set of controls to actually monitor our industrial control system? Do we have a focused or targeted approach on what exactly do we need to have in place in order to monitor or even respond to certain type of threats that I'm seeing in my industrial network, right? So those are some of the things in its current state the organizations are seeing. But then where exactly can they go from here? How this profile helps them is by building out an action plan. So mainly talking about I have 108 controls that I need to match. Now it's a complex, exhaustive process, but most of those controls are already available with our existing security planning cycle. We already have implemented a certain percentage of that. So what is the gap that we see today, which we do not have, and how do we bring those controls into our existing into our existing security monitoring is something that we will identify. Now, there is other caveats that come into it, talking about the current needs. So is this a plan, let's say 2022, or do we want to defer it to a 2023 plan because of the resources, because of the funding and budgeting that we have? So that's always a question that comes in. And basically, what we have seen is that companies are more and more focusing on including this in a much earlier plan and much faster as possible, rather than deferring it to the next financial year, to the next planning cycle. That gives definitely that builds, because my technology and my infrastructure is also changing over a year's period. The next thing is also prioritizing those risks. So I cannot address everything at the same time. So what are the most important relevant tasks that we need to identify based on this baselining, based on the modeling that we have done across our threat profiles? So we can probably prioritize it as based on the impact and the likelihood of the cyber threat that's happening. So once you have that matrix in place, it becomes much easier to prioritize these risks and then see, do we already have some existing controls in it, or do I need to go talk to a vendor, or do I need to go talk to an external partner who can help us solve these problems? And then how do I map all these with our organizational risks that we have identified? So keeping the executive teams in loop, telling here are the different set of controls that we do not have today, and these are the things that we would want to include in our security profiling to ensure that we stay cyber resilient in the operational technology, and also creating or minimizing the catastrophic impact that it can have on business. So everything security related to a downtime, related to unavailability, are all directly impacting the business's reputation and things like that.